Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Think. This is a channel where we do not tell you what to think, but rather teach you how to think. And so we show you how we come to the conclusions that are presented here in these videos. So today I'm going to be talking about something very frustrating, very frustrating. So there are so many claims, typically from atheists, that God supports beating slaves and God supports slavery, and that the Bible teaches this. And this is simply not true. Now, one of my big problems with this issue is many of the Christian apologists, they give a terrible, non-biblical answer because they do not actually analyze the text. They also use modern versions which do word it in a way that does promote slavery. And so I'm going to be showing you that today. And like I said, this is just very frustrating. Why do I get mad about it? Well, it's an accusation against God, right? So somebody told you that one of your loved ones was a terrible tyrant who did horrible things and hurt people and just all this character assassination on somebody you love. Wouldn't you want to defend it, right? So I want to defend it. I'm going to defend it. I'm going to show you how the Bible does not support that. I'm also going to show you how just reading through Scripture, reading context, and reading the right Scripture, the right version of the Bible, eliminates some of these errors. So we cannot start with the presupposition, right? Because what's happening is essentially the starting premise of a lot of the apologists is that it is teaching that there is slavery. So a lot of the apologies out there, a lot of the defenses out there are starting from defending the fact that yes, it did support slavery and here's why that's okay. Well, it's one of two things. Either it supports slavery and you have to defend it, or it does not support slavery at all to begin with, and there's nothing to defend. I will be taking the latter approach, and without further ado, here we go. So the Bible supports beating slaves. So I'm finally putting an end to the Bible supports slavery argument. This will be a look at Exodus 21, 20 through 21. So the bad verses. This will be the NASB and how most of the modern versions render it. And if someone strikes his male or female slave with a rod, and the slave dies at his hand, he shall be punished. If, however, the slave survives, again, the slave survives a day or two, no vengeance shall be taken, for the slave is his property. Property. So let's look at the King James Version and how this fixes it. So Exodus 21:20, and if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished, notwithstanding if he continue, not survive, continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. Money, not property, his money. So the rule that we're going by here, things different are not the same. Say that a lot because it's so important. Okay? So a servant or a maid does not equal a male or female slave. Continue does not equal survives, though it is a part of it. And money does not equal property. Now, do you see the differences here and why they're so important? Okay, so a servant in the Bible, what is a servant? A servant is somebody who cannot support themselves for whatever reason, or they're struggling, they're not able to make money. So what do? They approach another Jew, the Jewish community. They offer to be a servant. They enter into a contract. They have to serve for 6 years during that contract. And all that means is they're helping out, whether it's running the business that the person owns, who their master is, or just running things around the house. They'll do things like foot washing. In exchange for that, they get housing, food, clothing, medical care, the whole nine yards. The servant's a part of the household without being the family, and they are just performing duties for in exchange for all the things that they need. It's almost like a job, sort of more similar to indentured servitude. What it is not is slavery. They're not there against their will. They did enter into it, or they were offered it. Right? It is not the same thing as slavery. That's why money does not equal property. So do you see how the wording of the other version? Okay, let's look at that again. A male or female slave. So yes, in this version, it is talking about a slave. It even says slave. Male or female slave, not servant or maid. For the slave is his property. So does this not sound like slavery? Owning a person? Yes, it does. Right? And we're going to go a little more into the context here. So I am going to fully show you how these things are not supported, but that's a big thing right there. Now, what's the purpose of the chapter? So when we are doing hermeneutics, just a basic, I don't need to go into the whole depth of it, but one basic principle is, what's the context of the chapter? What's the context of which it's being written? Who's being written to? What is the topic, right? You have to look that out. Well, Exodus 21, it tells you everything that follows. So it's Exodus 21:1. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. So the things that follow verse 1 are what? Judgments. This would include verses 20 and 21. Why is something a judgment? Because some type of violation occurred. There was a violation, and therefore some sort of restoration, some sort of punishment needs to take place. So right off the bat, it's not really supporting anything that follows. It is giving you situational things where if there's a violation, here's what must be done to restore justice, right? That's what a judgment is. Now, other context. Now, let's look at this, because it's about smiting a servant, right? So he that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death. So if you beat somebody up and they die, you get the death penalty for it. So that's the context. Now, and if men strive together and one smite another with a stone or with his fist, and he die not, but keepeth his bed, if he rise again, okay, so he wasn't killed, he didn't die from it, he survived, and walk abroad upon his staff, then shall he that smote him be quit. That means he's not going to get the death penalty, right? Verse 12, that he die shall surely be put to death. So what's the punishment here? What is being quit? The punishment's death. So if the person survives, if the person rises again, they walk around, then the person who did it will be quit. They will not get the death penalty. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. So you have to make restitution for their inability to work, run their business, whatever, to provide for their family, and you have to pay for the medical expenses. So there we go. That's the justice. Now, jumping back to verses 20 and 21, so you can see the connection here. If a man smite his servant, so what changes here? Well, it's the servant. It's not another member. It's not a master. It's not somebody under your household in your care. Or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished. Now again, what's the punishment? He that smiteth the man so that he die shall surely be put to death. So if you beat your slave to death, sorry, not slave, if you beat your servant to death, then what happens? You get the death penalty. Now here's where everybody gets all up in a twist, right? Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. So, since the servant is already under the care of the master, already being taken care of, already being housed, already having all their needs met as part of the contractual obligation of the servant-master relationship, he doesn't have to pay anything in the aspect when it's a servant, right? In the situation where it's a servant, because he's already doing that. So he doesn't have to pay a fine because he's already paying the fine, and he is his money, meaning that you're already paying for all of him, and the servant is doing work, which is going to help the person, the master, make money, whether it be with their business or duties in the household, right? So it makes perfect sense. It is not saying that you can just beat your slave and get away with it. It's saying that the punishment's already a part of it. So therefore, he's not going to be punished with the other, he shall pay for the loss of his time and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. Now let's continue. No antebellum slavery. The Bible does not support antebellum slavery. And when atheists are making this objection and they see the word slave, what are they thinking of? They're thinking of the antebellum slavery here in America, the whole slave drive, the owning slaves, the beating them, the preventing them from escaping, them, buying them from the slavers who captured them, all of that, right? That's not what this is talking about. And here's the proof. Exodus 21:16. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Okay? So the death penalty, if we were going by the Bible, right, going by the Old Testament, then the whole antebellum slavery thing would not have happened because it's a death penalty. The Bible does not support it. Now, I'm not here to teach you history, but yes, people would go into villages in Africa, raid and steal the people and sell them, and then people would have be found in his hand. That means the ownership. So stealing, selling, and owning a slave in the Bible is punishable by death. Doesn't support slavery. Please stop saying it. It just doesn't. Here it is, clear as day. It is written. Stop saying it. Now the following context, right? So if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, and stripe for stripe. Right? So if you're smiting a man, whatever damage is done, you have to make equal restitution. Now, we're going to look at, in the case of a servant, what that entails. If a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. And if he smite out his manservant's tooth or his maidservant's tooth, he shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. Okay, so then what do we have here? Beat the servant didn't die. What ends up happening? You have to let the servant go free. You release them from their contract. There you go. It's not a good thing. The Bible's not supporting this in any way, shape, or form. That is not what the text is saying. The text is not saying, oh, it's okay if you beat your slave. It's not even a slave. We just saw that the Bible doesn't even support slavery. If you own a slave, you get the death penalty. So it's not saying that, right? And everybody tries to justify, well, slavery was a regular practice, and the Near Eastern slavery was different than the way that the Jews did it, and so sometimes slavery was necessary, and so it's just giving a solution for a not ideal. No, those are not it. That's all the scholars, most of the apologists, right? And why? Because they're reading modern versions that literally say slave. It isn't slave. It is servant or maid. It's a male or female servant. Helps around the house under a contractual obligation so that they can be provided for. The servitude's a good thing for the servant. Otherwise, they would be homeless and struggling. It'd be difficult. So there's nothing immoral here. Nothing immoral going on. And I think I clearly demonstrated that. So what do we now know? Servant is not a slave, and the modern versions exacerbate this problem by translating it to slave. It's not slave. It's not the concept of it in Jewish culture, by Old Testament law whatsoever. Now you might say, well, what about the people who, used the Bible back when it was the King James to justify slavery? Well, even the best apologists today are misinterpreting the passage. So it's still possible to misinterpret the Bible, even when it's the King James. I'm not saying that you can't misinterpret it, but I'm saying if you actually pay attention to it and study it and show things like I just did, then you'll see what it's actually saying. You can't get that from the modern version because you have to go with the fact that it says slave. Have to, because that is what it says. So, does the Bible support slavery? Well, if you think that modern versions, non-King James versions, are Bibles, then yes, the Bible does support slavery. I don't think those are Bibles. I've been proving this to you again and again and again throughout my video content that they aren't Bibles. They are corruptions, and they cause these types of issues. And atheists will sit there and argue, oh, look, the Bible supports slavery, right? Some other things, and I'm going to cover these topics in some other videos. Does the Bible say that a woman who is raped is forced to marry her rapist? No, it does not say that. I'm going to do a video on that. Did God send 2 bears to maul 42 children and kill them and eat them? And it was a horrible slaughter? No, that's a bad reading, bad translation, bad interpretation, and I'm going to cover those. Now, going on, what we now know, antebellum slavery is punishable by death in the Old Testament. God didn't support that kind of slavery. Get it out of your head. Beating a servant requires a judgment, right? So they're going to have to pay for them to be healed. Then they have to set them free. They no longer have to keep them as a servant. They don't get the benefit of it. They get the death penalty if the servant dies. Okay, we showed that. Like I said, they're released from servitude if they survive. Because they were already under the care of the master. That's why he doesn't get punishment, because he's already paying the restitution. So what is the bottom line? The Bible does not support slavery. All right? Let my people go. All right? The Jews under Pharaoh in Egypt, what did he do? He freed them from slavery because God does not support slavery. In any case, God bless you all. Please let me know in the comment section if you have any other questions regarding this or just what you think of the topic. Please like and subscribe. Please share this with any atheist friends that you have to at least put this one to rest. Right? Let's just put this one to rest. It's done. It's old. It's tired. The other answers out there are terrible. Finally gave you something good. So please share that. And God bless you all, like I said, and have a wonderful day.